This is Harsh Rules. I'm Ben Harsh, and today we're going to learn to play Twilight Imperium, the 3rd edition. Twilight Imperium, the 3rd edition, is a game of galactic conquest for 3 to 6 players released by Fantasy Flight Games in 2005. The game was designed by Christian T. Peterson and takes about 3 to 5 hours to play. In Twilight Imperium, you assume the role of one of 10 unique races vying to take control of the galactic throne. Each race has its own special abilities, military configuration, and technological advantages. Each player will need to master military strategy, political intrigue, diplomatic relations, and profitable trade agreements to achieve the 10 victory points necessary to win the game. Before we get started, let's familiarize ourselves with Twilight Imperium's lore. Millennia ago, this was the known galaxy, home to a multitude of sentient beings under the rule of the Lazeks, an ancient race that oversees their domain from a planet at the center of the galaxy. A planet known as Mechatol Rex. As time passed, new races emerged and joined the Empire's Galactic Council. The first great races: the Zcha, a wise and peaceful reptilian race pushed to war by numerous invasions. The Hakan, a race of merchant clans made wealthy by their homeworld's rare trade goods. The Letnev, an ambitious militaristic race only kept in check by their depleted homeworld. Sol, descendants of the human race and renowned galactic pioneers. The Hylar, an aquatic race of scientists and scholars who rely on their technological and intellectual superiority. And the Nor, an insect race ruled by the Queen Mother and her veiled brood. Yet, as time passed, new discoveries diminished, and territorial growth slowed. In their constant need for advancement, the great races began to look hungrily at their neighbors' systems, and even at the Lazeks themselves. Border strife and resource disputes arose. Fear and suspicion fueled military expansion. This was a time of growing darkness known as the Age of Dusk. The Lazeks Emperor attempted to solve these conflicts peacefully in the Galactic Council, to no avail. In a last-ditch effort, the Emperor tried to consolidate his control by seizing all the great race's warships. But it was much too late. The great races of the galaxy were now far too powerful, and this last effort triggered a brutal civil war. In an early incursion, the humans executed the Lazeks Emperor and his family. Thus began the Age of Twilight. During the war that followed, the population of Mechatol Rex was decimated. The once green planet blasted into a toxic wasteland. With the Lazeks Emperor dead, order broke down. The surviving Lazeks were hunted down and exterminated. This time was known as the Great Scourge. For the last 3,000 years, not a single Lazeks has been found. During this time, war raged on. But slowly, the strength of the great civilizations ebbed as their economies crumbled and whole technologies were lost. The Twilight Wars died in a slow whisper. The time that followed became known as the Dark Years. During this period of economic, cultural, and intellectual collapse, the great races have retreated into their own small, safe areas of space. With time, the dark years did finally come to an end, and a calm but uncertain period of rebuilding began. The Galactic Council has been reformed. During this time of reconstruction, new races have appeared on the frontier. The Mentak, a race of space pirates descended from convicts and political dissidents of the old empire. The L1Z1X, the prodigal cyborgs that claim to be the direct descendants of the Lazaks. The Yasaril, an aboriginal chameleon-like race of swamp dwellers proficient in guerrilla warfare. And the Nalu, a serpentine race of telepaths ruled by their powerful psychic matriarchs from their crystal cities. The day is fast approaching when a new empire shall rise. The only question is, who will arise from the Twilight Age to assume the throne? Who will rule in this new Twilight Imperium? Now that we familiarize ourselves with the game's story, let's begin the setup process by building the galaxy. So, get your bits together, people. It's time to set up the game. Twilight Imperium's game board is randomly built from 43 hex-shaped system tiles. These system tiles are divided into 3 groups. 10 home system tiles for each race, 32 neutral system tiles, and 1 capital system tile, representing the galactic capital at the center of the galaxy. Once placed face up, a home system can be identified by the gold border. Neutral systems are composed of 2 subgroups: regular systems which have no border, and special systems with a red border. Shuffle the 10 system tiles and place them face down on the table in front of the players. Each player will then select 1 system tile. Each player will flip over their tile to reveal which race they will be playing throughout the game. The remaining 4 systems will be removed and returned to the game box. Next, each player is going to roll a 10-sided dice. Now you're going to reorder the results from lowest to highest. The player with the lowest dice result is appointed the first speaker. And we have our order of play for setting up the galaxy. At this point, the players will also need to choose the color of the units they will play. In our example, the Mentak have chosen purple, the Hakan have chosen yellow, the Letnev have chosen green, Sol has chosen black, the L1Z1X has chosen blue, and the Yasaril have chosen red. This is our template for setting up a 6-player galaxy. First, let's focus on the yellow hexes on the outer edge of the galaxy. These yellow hexes represent each race's home system. The player who won the dice roll gets to select which of the yellow hexes they want to place their home system. For the sake of simplicity, player 1 will select the northern yellow hex. Following the order of play and moving around the board clockwise, each player will take their position at a yellow hex. Each player will then place their home system on the yellow hex position. The red hex in the center of the map represents the galactic capital, Mechatol Rex. So place the system tile for Mechatol Rex in this position. Next, take the stack of 32 system tiles and shuffle them so they're in a random order. Take the first 2 tiles off the top of the stack and place them back in the game box. There should be 30 system tiles remaining, which is just enough to create the rest of the galaxy. Next, deal 5 system tiles to each player. Each player is allowed to look at the system tiles in their hand to form their own strategy. The remainder of the galaxy is composed of 3 rings of systems. Following the order of play, each player is going to populate a ring of the galaxy with system tiles. First, they will begin with the innermost ring in the lightest color of blue. Now, before we start putting down system tiles to form our galaxy, let's get a better understanding of how these work. The green icon on the left tells you how many resources that planet provides. When you take control of a planet, you also receive the corresponding planet card. Planet cards are used like currency in the game. Resources are often used to purchase military units. The red icon on the right is for influence. Influence is the number of votes this planet provides for politics. When political cards are drawn, they must be voted on by members of the Galactic Council. Players can use the influence from their planets to vote for or against laws. The bar next to the planet's name will sometimes have a technology specialty icon. This home system shows the Mintak emblem, but on other systems, the technology icon will appear here. These icons are used to unlock technology upgrades. Below are the icons you might encounter that correspond to the technology upgrade tree: Warfare, Biotechnology, General Technology, and Propulsion. Now let's look at the information regarding special systems and wormholes. The core game contains the following special systems. First, supernovas. Supernovas are completely impassable and they cannot be activated for movement. Asteroid fields. Asteroid fields are impassable without a technology upgrade for an anti-mass deflector. Even with the anti-mass deflector technology upgrade, you must always move through an asteroid field. You can never end your movement inside one. Nebulas. Ships can move into a nebula but not through them. When leaving a nebula, the ship's movement is reduced to 1. However, defenders in a nebula receive +1 to combat rolls. And, while they're not considered special system, wormholes have their own sets of rules. Wormholes only map to the same type, so A's map to A and B's map to B. You need both halves of a wormhole on the galaxy map for them to function. For movement purposes, wormhole hexes are considered to be adjacent to each other. In Twilight Imperium, the creation of the galaxy is one of those gameplay elements that can quickly galvanize players against one another. Obviously, players will want to place the best systems near their home world and the obstacles near their enemies. When placing systems in a galaxy, the following rules apply. A system cannot be placed in the second ring before the first ring surrounding Mechatol Rex has been completed. Likewise, you cannot place a system in the third ring until the second ring is completed. You may not place a special system, that's a system with a red border, next to another special system unless you have no other option. If you place a system that did not contain a planet during your last placement, you must, if able, place a system that does contain a planet during your next placement. Now, let's populate the inner ring around Mechatol Rex, starting with player 1 and going around the table clockwise. The first ring is now complete. Also, when the last player in the order of play has placed a system, you reverse the direction. So now, starting with player 6, we're going to continue populating ring 2, moving counterclockwise. Now we're back to player 1 at the beginning of the order of play, and we reverse direction again, moving clockwise. The second ring is now complete, and we're ready to move on to the third ring. Also, we're back at player 6, and it's time to change direction and place systems counterclockwise. We're back at player 1, reverse direction, clockwise. And with that last placement, the galaxy is now created, and we're ready to move to the next phase of setup. A quick note, you can use the same process you've seen here for setting up a 6-player game to set up a 5-player game as well. Most of these setups merely require you to reposition the homeworlds. With that said, certain configurations have additional rules. In a 5-player game, once you've placed the home systems, and you're preparing the system tiles to deal out to all the players, you will remove only one neutral system and place it back in the game box. The first player will take the second neutral system and place it face down anywhere he or she likes in the first ring around Mechatol Rex. Once the galaxy is created by placing all the system tiles, you will flip this random tile up to reveal what it is. Also, because home system positions of player 1, player 5, and player 4 are close to each other, there's a proximity bonus. Players 1 and 4 receive 4 trade goods in the setup. Player 5 receives 6 trade goods. These rule additions to a 5-player setup help balance the game. Twilight Imperium also supports a 4-player game using this template. Fortunately, there are no alterations from the player setup from a 6-player game. And you can even set up a 3-player game using this modified template. However, there are some additional setup rules to balance out the game. You'll need to remove from the game prior to the shuffle 3 empty systems and 1 asteroid field. Also, after the tile shuffle, you're not going to remove 2 neutral systems, but 4. Once this is done, you should have 24 neutral systems remaining in your tile stack for the remainder of the setup. Keep these variants in mind if you're having trouble coming up with 6 players. In the next step, we're going to learn how to set up each player's play area and the common play area. For this tutorial, I've taken the game's recommended play space and organized it into 5 areas. The center section of the play space is the tactical control area. In the tactical area, place your race sheet. Above the tactical control area is the economic area. In the economic area, you place your planet cards and any trade cards that you have. When the game begins, the only system you control is your own homeworld. In this example, the Mentat Coalition only has one planet in their home system, Mol Primus. Therefore, this race only begins the game with one planet card. Each race can also establish a maximum of 2 trade agreements with other races. When the game begins, there are no trade contracts with any races. To the left of the tactical control area is the research and development area. In this area, you place your technology deck and any technology cards that you've earned. Each race begins with a different set of technology cards. The Mentat Coalition begins the game with the Hylar 5 Assault Laser and the Enviro Compensator. Whichever race you're playing, make sure the active technology cards are placed face up in the research and development area. Below the tactical control area is the secret area. In the secret area, you place your secret objective cards and any action cards that you currently hold. When you begin the game, you do not have any action cards, so I'm going to remove this action card from the play space for now. During setup, each player will draw one secret objective card from the secret objective deck. The unused cards are returned to the game box and cannot be viewed by any players. Obviously, all items in the secret area are not to be shared with other players. To the right is the reinforcement area. In the reinforcement area, you place all your ships that are not on the board and your command counters. You also store any unused control markers here. It is recommended that each race sets up their play area in a similar fashion. For our tutorial example, let's take a closer look at the Mentat Coalition's race sheet. The upper right-hand area of the race sheet has information for starting units, starting technology, and the race's special abilities. First, let's focus in on the starting units. This is the list of units that we will place on the Mentat Coalition homeworld, Mol Primus. So let's take a look at the main game board. So, taking a look at the galaxy map, we need to place our starting units on the Mentat Coalition's homeworld. Units in a system are divided into 2 areas. Units in the system's space, and units on the planet's surface. In the space surrounding Mol Primus is 1 carrier and 3 cruisers. On the planet itself is 1 space dock, 1 PDS, and 4 ground units. The starting units are different for each player, so each player will need to determine which units to place on their homeworlds. The next section refers to the race's starting technology. So let's zoom out to the Mentat Coalition's play area. All active technology cards are placed in the research and development area. So, look through the technology deck and find the card for the Hylar 5 Assault Laser and the Enviro Compensator and place them in this area. Now let's go back to our race sheet and see what else we need to set up. Next, let's review the Mentat Coalition's special abilities. The first special ability is that the player starts with 1 additional command counter in their fleet supply area. So let's pause for a moment and talk about command counters. The command counters are double-sided triangles that can be found in the reinforcement area. Each player should have a total of 16 command counters. I'll cover off on command counters and all their uses later in the tutorial, but for now, here's some quick facts. Command counters begin in the reinforcement area. When they're earned, they're placed on the race sheet. After they've been used on the race sheet, they're returned to the reinforcement area again. At the beginning of the game, each race has a set standard allocation of command counters. 2 command counters with the emblem side up in the strategy allocation section. 3 command counters ship side up in the fleet supply area. And finally, 3 command counters emblem side up in the command pool area. Now the Mentak Coalition has that special ability that gives them 1 additional command counter in the fleet supply area. So let's add that now. So if you're keeping track, that's 9 command counters on the race sheet and 7 command counters in the reinforcement area. Finally, let's talk about the last 2 special abilities of the Mentak Coalition. Before a space battle, the Mentak have an early strike ability with their cruisers or destroyers. Essentially, they get 1 shot before the formal battle begins. Any casualties from these shots are immediately eliminated and not able to fight back. Finally, during the strategy phase, the Mentak player may take 1 trade good token from up to 2 different players. However, this can only occur if each player has at least 3 trade goods on their race sheet. Each race has their own list of special abilities, so check these out to form your own strategies. Next, we're going to set up the common play area. First, at the top of the play area, place the victory point track. Next, place a control marker from each player on the space numbered 0. The remainder of the play area I've divided into 4 spaces. First, let's look at the section to the right, which is the supply area. In this area, place the planet cards deck, the action cards deck, a pool of trade good counters, a pool of ground force tokens, and a pool of fighter unit tokens. Players will draw from this area as needed throughout the game. Next, just below the victory point track is the objective space. In this space you will place the public objective card deck. Now we're going to pause for a moment. I'm going to show you how to set up the public objective card deck for the game. Find the 2 decks for Public Objective Card Stage 1 and Public Objective Card Stage 2. Search the Stage 2 Public Objective Card deck until you find a card called Imperium Rex. When you find this card, place it face down to start a new pile. Now, shuffle both Public Objective Card decks. First the Stage 1 deck, and then the Stage 2 deck. Draw 6 cards from the Public Objective Card Stage 1 deck and place them in their own pile. Replace the remaining cards in the deck back in the game box, unseen by any players. Now, draw 3 cards from the Public Objective Card Stage 2 deck and place them on the face-down Imperium Rex card. Replace the remaining Public Objective Card Stage 2 deck back in the game box. When you've done this, shuffle these 4 cards to randomize them. Finally, place the stack of Stage 1 cards on top of the stack of Stage 2 cards. And with that, the Public Objective Card deck is set up and ready to place in the common play area. As public objectives are revealed, they will be placed face up in this space. Below this is the Laws section. In this section, you place the Political Card deck. Political cards will be placed face up in this space for the Galactic Council to vote on. The bottom section is for initiatives. In this space, you will place the 8 initiative cards. And with that, the common play area is set up and we're ready to move on to the next step. And that concludes episode 1 of the Twilight Imperium tutorial series. In this episode, we learned about the game's story and we got the game itself set up and ready to play. In the next episode, we're going to dive deep into the rules and learn how to play. So until then, this has been Harsh for Harsh Rules. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.